Broadcasting from the Allen B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation at Nova Southeastern University. Welcome to Sunshine Startups Live, featuring rockstar entrepreneurs, bright ideas, and experts on the startup ecosystem. And now your hosts of Sunshine Startups Live, Jim Ryan and John Wensveen.
Hi, and welcome to Sunshine Startups Live. I'm your host, Jim Ryan, entrepreneur, investor, and startup enthusiast. Really excited to bring you this episode with my co-host, John Wensveen, who's CIO of Nova Southeastern University. John, great to join you again.
It's great to be with you again, and welcome to the world's first theme park for entrepreneurs, the only model in the world that has reverse engineered the success of an entrepreneur from birth of an idea through successful exit or global expansion. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to be with our special guest, Melissa.
Can you say that 10 times in a row, please?
I can do it 11 times in a row, but never correctly.
So good. That was so good.
So we're really excited. The purpose of the show is really to talk about the Florida ecosystem, the traction, bursting with startups, and really excited to have our guest today who's been at the epicenter of that. Her father has been affectionately known as the Miami godfather of tech. I would say that Melissa is the godmother, the mother of South Florida startups for sure. And so excited to have you joining us today on our podcast. And I know that recently you've just been named president and CEO of eMerge, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And we'll talk more about that in a moment, but I'm really interested to kind of wind the clock back a little bit. The Medina family, obviously, I mentioned about your dad and sort of growing up and being at the forefront of tech in South Florida. What was that experience like, seeing your dad, building tech businesses? Kind of talk about that family aspect of that.
Sounds good. I mean, first and foremost, though, thank you, Jim. Thank you, John. I was really excited when you gave me this opportunity to share this amazing platform with both of you. So thank you. Wow, it's going way, way back, right? My father, still to this day, is such a big part of my life and such a role model. Interestingly, though, our family and his business was not always in tech. It was actually, for most of my life, it was real estate. So my father started a company in 1980 called Terramark. And Terramark was a development company and was building commercial offices and hotels and buildings all throughout Miami. He built the original Coco Walk in the Grove, and he built the Montes that's still there today, and tons of apartment buildings and condos throughout South Florida. But what actually pivoted our family into the technology space was when I was in college, he won a bid, I should say, to build something called a NAP, which is called a network access point. And he won that bid in the merits of his real estate background. And a network access point is essentially, think of an airport for internet traffic, right? And there's different tiers of data centers all over the world. And this was going to be a world-class data center focused on connecting Latin America to the rest of the world, because there wasn't any data center big enough at the time to handle the internet flow of the Americas. And that's sort of where he began to build that building circa 2000. And I remember him being so excited about building this and him telling me while I was in college saying, Melissa, I feel like this is like the next industrial revolution. I don't only want to own this. I don't only want to build it. I want to own and operate it. And I just thought, I mean, that's a twist,
Sure.
Going really full-blown real estate to now I want to own and operate this technology center, the IT infrastructure that he had never really been in before. And I had worked with him from when I was a little girl. I've always loved business. I grew up in his boardrooms, trying to infuse as much knowledge from him as I could. Every summer I interned in his company. I was doing due diligence for him at like 15 years old and going to scope out properties, and I became very close with his partners and his colleagues, and they knew me very well. And they were calling me, I'm 18 years old, 19 years old, saying, your father's going crazy. He's selling all of his real estate and he's talking about technology and that he wants to, do exactly what you're not supposed to do, which is put all your eggs in one basket. And I know him, and I know when he gets very deeply involved in something that he believes in, that he's going to see it through. So I said, one, you're not going to convince him otherwise, I promise you. And two, I believe in him. It's the Steve Jobs saying, right? The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. I really believe that's like my father's name should be like in parentheses under there. And that's really where the family started getting into technology. He really did sell all of his real estate. He built that data center here in Miami, which still exists to this day, in about 10 months, and then ended up building data centers all over the world. But I think one important aspect, aside from talking about, real estate and technology and the professional part, personally, I come from an immigrant family. My father himself came to Miami from Cuba on a boat in the middle of the night at 13 years old with his sister and my grandparents, and my mom came at the age of 6 on a plane, but also fleeing, communist regime from Castro. And that is a big part of our family. It's a big part of who I am. We're extremely grateful as a family. Not only that my grandparents had the fortitude to bring my parents at such a young age to a place where they, a country they'd never been to, didn't speak the language, without a penny in their pocket, but that they landed in, the greatest country in the world, and, that they ended up landing in Miami and South Florida, because this community has just been so amazing to our family. My dad always says, I couldn't live enough lifetimes to pay back what this country and specifically this community has given to our family, to provide us with the opportunities that we've had to become entrepreneurs and to build companies and businesses. They would have never had that opportunity in Cuba. So that's family is a big part of who we are. We're a very close-knit family, very large, but close-knit family.
So when I first moved to Miami, my office window actually looked out at this big cement block, and I had no idea what it was. And then I quickly learned after inquiring what it was, and I became fascinated with. You
remember the big 2 satellites on top?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm an aviation junkie, and I thought it was something to do with aviation and weather and radar and whatnot. But it was quite exciting to learn about what that was. So DNA's in the blood. Your dad's been changing the world. You've been changing the world. You are at the helm of what is, to me, the best event that takes place in all of South Florida, if not the state. And I'm probably your unofficial biggest fan. And,
best ambassador and connector and friend of eMerge.
I appreciate that. And I love what you're doing. So eMerge has been a very impactful organization. I'm not even going to say over how many years, because I want you to tell the audience the exciting news that's forthcoming. But talk to us a little bit about eMerge, the function, the impact that it's having, and the real exciting news that's forthcoming.
Yeah, sounds great. I think in order to get to the exciting news, it'd probably be important to just give some context of, what is eMerge and why did eMerge even start? So I ended up working for Terramark worldwide. So Terramark, the real estate company, completely dissolved and then became Terramark Worldwide. That's the technology company. That's where the technology company started. I worked there for many, many years. The company sold to Verizon in 2011. That's where the conversation my father and I had, that's where eMerge was born, without even having a name or a concept. And the idea was, at the time, after the sale of the company, many people were telling my father, of course, congratulating him and telling him, wow, this is so amazing. This tech exit in Miami. Miami has so much tech. And he would say, no, it doesn't. Miami doesn't have, we can't lie to ourselves either, right? No, it doesn't. But I believe that it should. And I believe that South Florida has all the elements to become a thriving tech hub. So he basically challenged me and said, I don't know how we're going to do this, but I really want people to start using South Florida, Florida, Miami, and tech in the same sentence. I want the key tech ecosystem stakeholders to believe that Florida is a place where you can launch a company and build it successfully over and over and over. And we wanted everyone to, believe what we believed in, which is this can happen here. But we just had no idea how. So he said, the challenge is, let's figure out a way to start helping foster that mentality, to start transforming South Florida in a way. So the first project under this ambitious goal was, why don't we create a convening? We had been to conferences all over the world pitching our products and services. We knew at the time there was no technology conferences in the southeast, really, of the US, and there was none concentrating on that bridge to Latin America. Miami had been for a long time, people call it capital of Latin America in so many industries, right? In finance and other sectors, but not in innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. So that's where sort of the genesis of, okay, let's create a convening, a physical convening. People might come for different reasons, like they want to have fun in Miami, they want to come to Miami to check it out, but they're also, subliminally realizing that they're coming for a technology event where we're bringing together innovators, thought leaders, investors, entrepreneurs, academia, government officials, all talking about how technology is transforming our lives. So we hoped that little by little, if we kept doing that, it would create some formative change in South Florida. And, we do have a very exciting year because from when we launched and opened our doors, it was May 2014. So next year it's incredible to even say out loud, but it's our 10th year anniversary next spring. It's a huge milestone for us. And also, I think it's a huge milestone for our ecosystem. When we think back I'm sure John, thinking back 10 years in South Florida, the changes that we've seen, the exponential growth, the acceleration, the excitement, the energy, I feel like I can go on and on. But these 10 years have been transformational. And the exciting part, I think, about next year is not only looking back and being so proud of what has happened over the last 10 years, but what do the next 10 years look like for us? Like, we're in such a phenomenal position, in my opinion, to leverage all of this excitement, all of what's unfolded over the last several years. The silver lining with the global pandemic, which was awful, and we never want to go through that again. But there were some takeaways there, right? And some, I think, communities that a global lens ended up opening up on them. And there's no question that South Florida was one of those.
It's incredible to think 10 years and how this ecosystem has really bursted at the seams from, you mentioned 10 years ago. There really were no accelerators in the state.
There were a few shared workspaces. I remember because I remember doing all the research, thinking like, what does Miami already have? And there was not much. There was a few shared workspaces that just opened. Pipeline had opened. There wasn't even a WeWork here at the time. Incubators and accelerators, minimal. Endeavor Miami came in 2014. Just in parallel, which was great, a great addition, not only to Miami, but to the U.S. because it was their first U.S. office. But yeah, there was not much of an ecosystem, if any.
So how did you go about then sort of creating a brand awareness of what eMerge could be, what the ecosystem could be? Those first couple of years must have been really difficult. Yeah,
they definitely were. I think we had a lot of pushback. A lot of people questioned why we would do that in Miami, but we also had a lot of support. We created something that I think really made a difference for the evolution of eMerge. We created a steering committee of about 40 leaders in South Florida, made up from completely different verticals. It wasn't just technology verticals. And we said, we want to bring you together to be a part of building this. We want to get your ideas. Like, what do you think about this concept? How can you potentially partner with us? We want you to ideate with us and help build this first, eMerge 1.0. And we met with them quarterly for 2 years. So the idea was born in 2012. It took us 2 years to launch in 2014. And I really think that helped us sort of gain the critical support necessary to launch that first year. We also had really good relationships because of our work in Terramark and, of course, my father's vision and his partnerships that he had created with a lot of partners in the technology space with Terramark. So I think part of it was also, we think you're kind of crazy and this might not work, but we also believe in you guys. And so we'll take a risk to test it, but then you have to validate it and prove it, right? And that's what we had to do year after year. And I think that's how we grew very organically. We always thought big, which is why we host it every year at the Miami Beach Convention Center. Because we always in our minds was, we want to grow this. We want to make this super impactful. Let's think big and hopefully grow into that space in the future. And I think those were sort of the elements that allowed us to launch successfully and in an organic way.
It's interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody just the other day about the role of eMerge and then other organizations that have come along throughout the state as this ecosystem begins to build. I truly believe that the state of South Florida would not be where it is right now if it wasn't for that crazy idea and getting the support behind you, which you now would validate. So now when you come forward with another crazy idea, people are probably going to listen.
We have.
I'm sure you do.
We do.
So I'm kind of curious.
It's for the next episode.
You mentioned 10 years into the future. What is the crazy idea that's going to work? Where do you see eMerge in 10 years?
Oh, it's such a good question. We have a couple, what we call BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals that I can't share right now. There's two pretty big ones, and I'm hopeful that we'll communicate them soon enough and get everyone on board. But to answer your question of where I see just eMerge and I think our ecosystem within the next 10 years, I think we're just scratching the surface. I think we've seen this incredible J-curve effect, this incredible acceleration, and then now it's like to the moon. We absolutely, if we continue to work the way we're working, if we continue to leverage this momentum, I believe that we'll take another step forward with people not questioning anymore, is South Florida, a thriving, innovative, global tech ecosystem? I think we've made a lot of strides. I think we have a lot less questions asked, about South Florida and why. It's almost like, how can I be involved? Which is great. How could I be a part of it? How can I get my company there? How can I hire employees from there? I want to go to school in South Florida. I mean, that whole narrative has changed so much. But I believe within the next 10 years, it's going to Miami, South Florida, Broward, West Palm, we're all going to become a thriving global tech hub, and it's just gonna, that's what's gonna happen, where it's not gonna be questioned anymore.
You mentioned the word moon in there. I just got to say, I hope there's a space element to all of this, right, somewhere.
Well, space, I think, is a huge vertical for our state. I mean, you know it better than anybody, and I think if we wrap our arms around that too, it's going to propel us to another level as an ecosystem as well. And I think it's just continuing to figure out, how do we connect the dots? How do we continue to work together? We're building something, I think, extremely special. We are building something global now, where I could say from an eMerge perspective, in the beginning it was, we're focusing on the Americas, which is great and it is unique and it's a differentiator. Geographically, we should absolutely concentrate on Latin America and the connection that we, geographically make for them as they connect to Europe or Asia or even to the US. But what's exciting, I think, about what's happening now is that South Florida, it's a global hub now. People look at us in an international landscape. And all of those, this perfect storm of elements, I hope, are coming together, and there's no turning back. I think that's the most exciting part.
And you and the eMerge team, I thought, did a fabulous job, especially this past year and in years past, but this past year, where you went and did a rodeo. You went to various countries. You introduced eMerge. You talked and shared the story, the narrative of what's happening in Miami.
Yes.
So, what was that experience like going around to some of these various, especially in Latin America?
Yeah, it's a big part of the work that we do. And this sort of touches the heart and soul of our work, which is our work with entrepreneurs and connecting them with investors, with mentors, with companies and organizations that can help scale their businesses. We started this roadshow 5 or 6 years ago now, but it's expanded year after year. And what we do is we go to emerging markets in Latin America and in the US, what we consider emerging tech markets. And we host 2 days of startup pitch events. We host ecosystem dinners, roundtables. And the idea is, one, to connect with entrepreneurs in each of these cities and countries, to invite them to the ecosystem we're all building here in South Florida, and to create almost like a knowledge transfer between their community and ours, and know that they have an opportunity here as well. And so, yeah, we go to Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, Chile. We added Dominican Republic last year, in the Caribbean. We go to Atlanta, Tampa. We're thinking about adding Nashville this year, which is exciting. It's a lot of activity in Nashville. So it's a very fun and exciting part of the work that we do at eMerge, because if these entrepreneurs scale with the support that we're providing, it's going to benefit our ecosystem as a whole. And if they win, then we all succeed. I really believe they're sort of the glue to everything that we're doing.
So I see you as a model, really breaking down barriers for women, and particularly young women, and an inspiration. And I know you've had this question a million times, but how do you do it? How do you balance changing the world with eMerge and everything else you've got, and then this whole family thing that you've got going on? How does it all intersect and work?
So I think, the myth of like having it all balanced it's not true. It's a daily balance in my life. I'm a mother of 5 between the ages of 7 to 16. I thank, God every day that I have a village that helps me, where, it says it takes a village, like that's my name there, because without the support of family and friends who are like family, it would be very difficult to be able to do what I do. So I feel very thankful that I have that support system. But it is a daily balance, right? Where I have to choose sometimes what's my priority today. And, sometimes it's going to be work over the personal. And sometimes there's nothing that will be able to take me away from, a ceremony or something that my kids are a part of. And I feel very blessed that I am able to try to balance it. It's definitely never perfect, and I do have to make those difficult decisions sometimes. And, I feel the mom guilt, or the parent guilt, I should say, that we all feel as parents sometimes. But the way I look at it is, it's day to day. But if you ask my kids, they would tell you that I'm a planner as well. And so I have an old school like agenda, even though I'm, everything is technology. I have everything in my phone, all my appointments and calendar appointments. For me to see my written agenda and look at my week, it actually helps me on Sundays. I look at it and I see, where is there some open space? Where do I have to shift things around? What are my priorities? And, week to week, day by day, sometimes hour by hour. But yeah, it's and it also is, part of it is being forgiving too, where I feel like I've gotten better at not being so hard on myself too.
So if I can add to that, a sort of comment and a question. So being an entrepreneur for over 20 years, I've been to a lot of conferences, and I will tell you, you mentioned about family earlier, and both you and your father are incredibly welcoming and nurturing, and you really, really built a culture at the eMerge conference that I think is very different than you would find in many other conferences. Highly approachable, hugging, welcoming.
Yeah, I'm a hugger.
Both
COVID was tough. I'm a hugger.
And it really, obviously, from your father, too, very approachable. He shakes your hand. He gets to know your name. And so that's, I think, in part, obviously the success of eMerge and what you've built, but also I think in many ways is the genetics with you and your father and the culture and the nurturing aspect of building that organization.
Thank you so much. That really, it really means a lot to me, because when we were building eMerge from the beginning, we always said, we want eMerge to have a soul. We want eMerge, people to leave there and feel full of energy and feel that they made positive connections. And, that, what you're telling me is just music to my ears. And the way that we try to thread family in is very important. For us, eMerge is a family. And, my kids have seen eMerge be built from scratch. They've all been there with the build out weeks before. And so I try to immerse them too, to show them, this is what, mom's been working on, and I want you to be a part of it and visually see, the hard work, so that you understand why I'm traveling sometimes or can't be there every single day. So family is very important for us, both in my professional life and personal life.
Foundation,
Yeah.
for sure. I want to ask you, you are unique in that, obviously, the time frame for eMerge, over 10-year span coming up, from really being an infant to some of the maturation that we're seeing now. How have, and we're looking at, obviously, startups, and the startups going to look to us to sort of share nuggets of wisdom and so forth. What kind of nuggets of wisdom that you've seen? How has the market changed, and what have been some of the successes that you've seen through the startups?
The startup ecosystem has changed so much. When we first launched eMerge, we transparently could not get investors to come. We actually had an amazing group of entrepreneurs that were part of our program that were going to be at eMerge in 2014. And phone calls, emails, connections, it didn't matter. Investors were like, why would I go to Miami to potentially invest in an entrepreneur? That's exactly the words, like, without hesitation. We're inviting you, we're going to put you in front of some amazing entrepreneurs. And it was very, 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 difficult. That narrative has changed from 2014 to 2023. Now it's the reverse. How the investors reaching out, not only to our organization, to so many others in our ecosystem, saying, how can I connect with these entrepreneurs? So I think entrepreneurs and startups should, realize that there is so much more opportunity now, and that investors are looking here. Also, don't take my word for it. Just track the data too. We publish venture activity reports biannually and then the full year. And, we're 7th in the nation now in venture dollars invested in Florida. We weren't even on the map.
Not even on the map.
Right. We weren't even on the 10 years ago. I don't even think we made the list. So, the numbers are changing. And I think entrepreneurs are excited about that. The entrepreneurs, just from my personal perspective, traveling through Latin America through all these years, entrepreneurs that I met in 2014, 2015 in Mexico and Colombia, the first thing they would say is, my North Star is to get to Silicon Valley. That's where I want my business, which I understood, that was the North Star. Our whole concept here, it's not to compete with Silicon Valley or try to become Silicon Valley. It's just to provide another option. And we're seeing now that that narrative has shifted. Entrepreneurs are looking at South Florida, not only Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, Tampa, Orlando, to build their businesses. And I think, we should all that have been involved in this be so excited to see that and track those numbers. So the data is there.
So I'm very excited about what the future has in store for the state of Florida, South Florida as a region, of course, eMerge, and congratulations on the upcoming 10th anniversary. We are going to do our part to make sure that people know about eMerge and get them there. Melissa's famous, by the way. She forced people to get on a bus and drive them up to Fort Lauderdale to one of our events. So we're going to do something similar and load up the train and get everybody down to Miami for eMerge. And
where the countdown's
It's going to
on.
be fun. It's going to be great. And we have South Florida Space Day and Innovation Day coming up. eMerge Americas is a big supporter support partner, and I like the family model that you've grown with eMerge, and I know that you're part of our family, and we want to be part of your family.
You are. No, that's
it's
already happened.
All right. Well, so I'm just so excited, and I just can't thank you enough for everything that you continue to do and your organization continues to do. And I could literally talk for hours about your thoughts and ideas, but I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to be with you today.
No, thank you, John. Thank you, Jim.
And mention about the transition, obviously, because
Yeah.
congratulations on your promotion. Felice is moving on to much, a huge opportunity.
A once in a lifetime. I am so proud of Felice. He, is going to be working as a board member of the World Bank. He was appointed by the President of the United States and confirmed by the Senate. It's completely a once in a lifetime opportunity. Extremely proud of him. Working with him these past 5 years has truly been amazing and phenomenal. And speaking of family, I mean, he'll be part of the eMerge family forever. And I'll be there to support him through this next part of his journey. And I know he'll do the same with me. And, I'm basically absorbing both roles. I've been president of the organization. I'm also co-founder of the organization. And I will now take on his role to president and CEO. And I'm really excited. I mean, next year is a very meaningful year for us. And I'm excited to continue to do what we've been doing and hopefully do it well and continue to put South Florida on the map.
What are the dates? Any idea for dates for next year's conference?
Of course.
We have to share that.
Yeah, of course. April 18th and 19th, 2024.
So don't take your vacations around that time.
No, April 18th and 19th. It's a Thursday and a Friday at the Miami Beach Convention Center. You can find so much more information, emergeamericas.com. And there's going to be a lot of surprises, too, for the decade celebration.
Well, you have amazing guest speakers, incredible conference. Really encourage attendance. So, Melissa Medina, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Congratulations again on the new role. eMerge Americas, Melissa Medina. Thank you again.
Thank you both.
Remember to subscribe, like, and share the Sunshine Startups Live podcast and follow us on social media. If you're interested in sponsoring or appearing on the show, please email us at booking@sunshinestartups.live.